We're here today with Delegate Terry Suit of the Virginia House of Delegates. And Delegate Suit has been kind enough to sit down with us and give us an interview on some of her thoughts dealing with the real estate sector. Good afternoon, Delegate.
Thank you, Tyra. It's a pleasure to meet with you.
Now, I want to make sure that I'm saying this right. Being from Maryland, we're not as familiar with all of the Commonwealth's terms, but I want to congratulate you on your appointment to chair General Laws.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't Committee of General Laws, it's actually just General Laws?
We just say General Laws. It's the General Laws Committee, but we just say General Laws.
Well, in any event, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I guess the first question that we want to ask you is, what is your legislative agenda with regard to housing this session?
You know, there has been a lot this year dealing with housing in the press and the media. You know, obviously everyone's heard about the foreclosure issues, everyone's heard about subprime lending. Probably my primary goal is to not allow knee-jerk legislation to get through that could harm the housing industry and harm the ability of people to buy homes. You know, so often legislators, you know, kind of like how a surgeon always wants to fix things with a knife, legislators want to fix things with law, and sometimes forget that the market and the industries themselves actually implement corrections, and I think a lot of that's already happened.
Okay, okay. I tend to agree. I think that that leads us into some of the other questions that we're going to have here. The next one, as a matter of fact, is you're in a unique position because you're on the legislative side and, from what I understand, the policy side as the chair of the Virginia Housing Commission.
That is correct.
Can you discuss any policy positions that you all have as an agenda this year?
Well, a standing, ongoing policy item for the Housing Commission is affordable housing, obviously, and trying to find avenues, create avenues for more access to housing for our citizens. This year, we are looking very closely at common interest communities. And what I'm talking about are condo associations and homeowners associations. In Virginia, there has been a lack of oversight on the professional management of these associations and how those professional managers are conducting business. And we had a situation in Northern Virginia where a professional management firm did have an issue with embezzling or absconding with funds, and there was nothing really that the Commonwealth could proactively do to prevent that. We have a whole bill now creating a licensing scheme that we've worked with the common interest community management industry on, and they've been wonderful, and we've come up with protections and standards of performance and things that have been necessary to protect the money, the reserves of these homeowners associations.
Excellent, excellent. Well, one of the interesting facts about this whole situation with the mortgage market is that if you look at the numbers, Virginia's median home price has averaged better than a lot of other regions in the United States. And from your standpoint, why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it's joblessness. We do not have a high jobless rate. We have a very, very low jobless rate. And if you look at where the foreclosures are in this country, and the foreclosures are driving, you know, those prices down, along with just the lack of having a buyer market out there, or I'm sorry, having a lot of buyers out there in the market, because we don't have a real heavy jobless problem. We've had a very stable housing market. We are just beginning to see declining markets in areas other than Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia has been the only declining market. Other areas have just been stable, but not declining. We've seen some price dropping from the highs. We've seen, like in other areas, sellers paying for closing costs now and offering concessions. But we really haven't seen the kind of decline in house price other than Northern Virginia that other areas of the country have. And I think it's because people can buy.
Right, okay. Well, the last question I have for this segment, I'm sure you're familiar with the whole Kelo versus New London case that went through litigation a few years back. And it has to do, of course, with eminent domain. Since that's become a more prominent issue, and you can look at it from the standpoint of the states and the municipalities and their needs, you also have to look at it from the standpoint of the property owners. How do you feel, what do you feel would be the best ways to balance those two needs? Right. And are there any, or is there any talk of legislation that would address that in the 08 session?
Not in 08. We did legislation in 06 and we did legislation in 07. And Virginia really, we put in some good some good protections in the law. But one thing folks need to understand, Virginia's different than other states. We are what's called a Dillon Rule state. And what that means is that local governments and local authorities can only do what is expressly permitted by the General Assembly. If there is not legislation on the books allowing something, they can't do it. Maryland is just the opposite. You can do whatever is not prohibited. So what that means is, in most of our localities, we'd never given the power to take property for economic development. We do have housing and redevelopment agencies, and we did a significant change in the law last year to make sure that they weren't using condemnation powers strictly for economic purposes. But really, Virginia wasn't in the same position that Connecticut and other states have been in.
Well, that's good to know. I think that the viewers and the subscribers will definitely feel a little bit more comfortable from that standpoint, because they are business owners as well as just plain old property owners that are concerned about that issue.
Yeah, we have to balance, we have to balance being able to provide tools for keeping neighborhoods and communities healthy and keeping them well maintained and protecting everyone's property values, but also balance that with making sure we don't give too much power so that property can be taken.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. This concludes the first session of our two-part interview. I'd like to again thank the delegate, and when we come back for part two, we'll talk about the delegate's views on the indications that the malaise may be at a bottom. Thank you.
Thank you.